What does African liberation, Black liberation, what does it look like? How closely do you pay, attention to the things that are happening in the States with George Floyd? What do you kind of dream of for the future of Africa?
So I've had the opportunity to, I don't even know if I'm a hybrid. And I mean that from the standpoint of I've experienced America. I've spent enough time to know what the culture is like and the people. And I'm also a Nigerian. Look, the George Floyd thing. Unless you're not human, for that stuff not to get to you. I have my reservations about how I felt that we reacted as Africans. And if you think back and you sort of go back, a few weeks, a few months after his death, people were marching in Australia. People were marching in the UK. Asian people were marching. I didn't see any videos of Africans marching. We sort of talked on Twitter, but I was like, look, people, what those people are going through is as important as what we are going through. And I know there's always a rivalry, and there was a sense of that in the US, but I never really felt it. I had an African-American roommate, Emmanuel, amazing guy. So I just never saw it. But friends of mine would say, "Oh, there's a bit of tension between African Americans and Africans." I never really saw it, personal experience. But I'm like, these guys are an extension of us, right? When we do well, they do well. When they do well, we do well. And I've seen it a lot of times. I met with Dibanji's manager. She's Trish. She's African American. And she's as Nigerian as it comes. And she's taking Dibanj around the world. A lot of the collaborations happening right now, sort of the emergence of African music, apart from the fact that it's great music, it's been great for a while. We've had Sonny Ade and Ebenezer Obey, and we've had all these great guys, Sonny Okosu, Majek Fashek. Well, you see, what is different with this generation is that there's cross-pollination. There's a helping hand between those cultures. Just executive produced Burna Boy's album. Like that's why everyone is important to us. Like everyone, the African American cause is as important as ours. And it's unfortunate that we don't necessarily embrace it in this generation, because our forefathers did. Nkrumah and Malcolm X and Awolowo and Jomo Kenyatta. Those guys saw eye to eye. Those guys, understood sort of this, emancipation, this new thinking, and we sort of lost it in the 70s, and the 80s. So that was shocking for me. And I don't have an answer for you. It's not like I marched, but I wish we could march. I wish, CNN could have picked Nigerians also saying, George Floyd and taking a knee and all that. But for us, it wasn't important. It was like, oh, what are we going to eat now? Like, okay, what's happening? So when I think about it, that's how I think about it, and I want the African Americans to succeed, because when they do, we succeed. And when we succeed, they succeed. When we succeed, they succeed because they have an opportunity to come home. They can come to Ghana. They can start businesses in Nigeria, and even and no one has to say, "Oh, they're Black." We're all Black, And I think the more that we push that, and I think that's what Harambee is, in sort of like a, in an early stage where we're cross-pollinating sort of the culture and the ideas, from the West, and sort of bringing it home and collaborating, and not saying that home is worse, but saying that home has some good and we have some good. And if we bring this good together, then all of us can rise, and that has to be the future. That's how we have to approach it. That's what I call, that's Blackness. That's oneness. That's what I think that's what I think should be ideal, that should happen in an ideal world.